What would you do if you were having personal struggles with your health? And the more you looked, the more you couldn't find the solution that would really help you specifically. I'm speaking to Izzy Fischer and Sophie Allen, the co-founders of DailyBasis. Now, this is such an interesting product because it is specifically made with women in mind. So much of the products in the world, especially in wellness, are based on studies that rarely include women and have not thought about what we uniquely need. So I really find this fascinating because we're going over my category of wellness that I really enjoy, but also we're going into the entrepreneurial side of innovating, creating a product, bringing it to the market. If you've ever thought about doing this or you're doing it now, this is a conversation you are going to want to hear. I will see you inside. Welcome to her first 3 years, Sophie and Izzy. I'm excited to hear about your journey and really the kind of empowering work that you are doing for women.
It's a really exciting time for us right now. What Izzy and I are really focused on right now is bringing a stellar company, women's health company, to the forefront that is providing both a education of sorts and a continuing of the conversation around women's holistic health from a hormonal perspective and how much that drives our total health.
You know, as you think about building a business in this industry, it's been really inspiring to talk to women all the time, and not only our customers, but our partners, our business partners, our mentors, and hear how much this product and brand is needed. There's this buzz happening in the female health space right now and in the wellness space, and you have this unfolding of conversations that have really been needing to happen for a long time. And when we think about menstrual health and we think about the conversation around periods and perimenopause and menopause and fertility and pregnancy and endometriosis and all of these topics that have been seen as taboo for so long start to help educate women about what they really need to know about their unique bodies. And then we're seeing this forefront of products that are so needed and so late to the game.
It's so funny how how you were saying, Izzy, that these conversations needed to happen, but they become almost trends because it's like so many years go by with all this being suppressed, women not being in a position of leadership in many spaces, on the marketing teams, on product development, enough people in the medical field to be able to push it like we can now. And I was just thinking when you were talking, Izzy, about how I remember my great grandma would be like 100 something today. And I remember her saying to me, they would hint at menstrual products in the newspaper. Like they wouldn't really even say what it was. And what I think is fascinating is like, it's only in recent years. So keep in mind, like she would have been 100 something, but it's only in recent years that they even show real blood or even test real blood on products. Like that's such a slow evolution. It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and
It is.
Really what is at the core of Sophie and I's mission is that we are catering to a need that women are not given right now. There's so many supplements on the market that are potentially built for all people, but they're actually really built for men. And that's really due to the research and the fact that we have a menstrual cycle and it makes us really complicated to study. So there's so much less research on menstruating women because our hormones are complicated and they convolute a lot of studies. And so what women really need to feel supportive, they're missing so many critical things that are really part of what builds healthy and strong, long-term vital bodies for females. Like you said, this conversation has been ignored. I mean, women deserve better.
Yeah, I think I'll add to probably the reason it feels like a trend right now is because there's so much conversation happening. And that's because so many women are jumping on board because they feel so passionately about it. I think women have been historically siloed or felt to be very alone in it. And so I think now that the conversation is opening up and is more public, it's not these small hints. I firmly believe this is not a trend. This is the direction we're headed. And there's just a huge energy right now.
Well, let's talk about that a bit because I feel like, so it's 18 months now you guys have since you first launched it, but I imagine you were thinking about it well before then, right? Or at least a little bit before then. So you would have been at the beginning probably of this big energy around what you're now featuring. So you're running it where everybody kind of is learning and knowing and excited. But when you first started, I imagine there was less awareness. So what were the small decisions that led each of you to decide this is what we're going to do? Like, did you have a background in it? What was the pain points for? How did you decide to do it together? Because I also find it fascinating, the idea of working with someone else in this crazy entrepreneurial life.
There's a lot of things that I can talk about to answer that question. I think I can think of it in two parts. There's the becoming an entrepreneur and starting a company, and then there's the actually starting this company and what it looked like. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. I knew when I worked in companies that I needed to do my own thing. I just had this heartstring pulling me away from any sort of structure or someone telling me what to do. And so I have started a business in the past. I knew I was coming here eventually. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And when I met Sophie, we really bonded so much over this lack of education that we received around our own bodies, of struggling with hormonal health that really caused a lot of intense symptoms and diagnoses for us. And when I learned about the hormonal phases of the menstrual cycle and how drastically different they were, I was shocked. And I also felt so empowered at the same time because I was able to show up very differently than I had in the past, in addition to these more drastic realizations about how gypped, frankly, we have been when it comes to our knowledge and our health. Really led us to looking at the market and seeing that there was just nothing that could serve us. The original product was much more focused on nutrition and food. And after working with Sophie and our health professionals, we evolved it, and it's changed a million times. But I think that this really just was something that we both bonded over, needing ourselves.
Similar journeys to some degree. Izzy spoke to it a little bit. In my early 20s, I experienced some really, really significant gut issues, and that just plagued me all throughout my 20s. And I'd been an athlete, college athlete. After college, I got to this place when I started having a lot of symptoms. So like major GI distress, like significant energy issues. Fingernails started to like get really, really thin and get like very weird and start to come off a little bit. And I later realized after going to many doctors that this was a significant iron deficiency. And then the GI distress was very hormone related. But it was through these many years of going to different doctors, as well intentioned as all of these doctors were, they were specialists and they weren't putting all the pieces together. And so I went on that journey on my own. And it wasn't until I met Izzy that we were both talking about really feeling passionate about women's health. And then having a partner who had started a business before. My parents actually are quite entrepreneurial, but it wasn't something that I had thought a lot about. I was kind of on the corporate, it was kind of the push or the support I needed to say, let's go follow a passion in a place that we feel is really needed.
The fact that your own experience influenced what you made and that you were both open to evolving it, I think speaks so much. And also that you, like you were saying, Sophie, this is, I mean, it's a serious issue. It's like not understanding your menstrual cycle, not understanding what you need from it. What you're doing has so much magnitudes of like, I can see why you were, forget corporate, let's do this. But let me ask you, backing up a little bit for both of you, because again, I think it's fascinating that you found each other and that you really resonated together and you both kind of have complementary skills. How did you meet? And then how did you go from having these conversations of shared experiences to let's create a product?
Great question. We met at our last job. We both were working at Clif Bar. I worked in the brand business marketing side, and Sophie was in kind of the innovation commercialization ops side. We met at Clif Bar, and it actually was a happy hour. I was talking about my menstrual cycle and cycle syncing and nutrition and how I feel like there needs to be a product. And we were kind of just spitballing at a happy hour with friends, and Sophie was there. I really didn't know her that well at all. I think we had spent a couple of hours together. We didn't even really work together. And Sophie approached me in the parking garage and was like, you shouldn't be
After.
sharing that idea broadly with people. You need to keep that on lock. And I was like, oh, okay. And from there, it was like the next 24 hours, Sophie was sending me research and market analyses and like just novels and novels of like ideas. And I was like, okay, maybe we should do this. And we met for sushi like a few days later and basically signed a contract to start the business like a week after that. And it was just the most happy accident of all time. I think that we constantly are talking about, oh my God, I can't believe this worked out so well, because we really do complement each other so well. We started it so quickly after meeting that it could have been such a disaster, but it's been so productive, and we have really just built joint love for each other. I think that I know that you talk a lot about business on this podcast, and I think that having a co-founder relationship can be really challenging, and it can sometimes be the make or break to this business. And so it's been a really rewarding relationship for both of us, because we have had to work at it just as much as we have to work at our own romantic relationships. And that, I think, is one of the most important things that one can do when starting a business, especially if you have a business partner. I don't know about you, Sophie, if you feel this way.
Yeah, this isn't the first time we've talked about this. We've talked a lot about prioritizing our relationship as the basis of the business. It's probably not that dissimilar about how couples talk about the basis of a marriage as the like foundation of a family, right? And I think it's funny, we both got married last year as well and formed our partnership and our business. And so it was many of these conversations were had. And one of the things that I think is so cool, because absolutely it could have been disastrous, and Izzy and I do sit on, maybe, I don't know, I would say like maybe extreme ends of the spectrum as like personality and work styles. And I think that we have had to work really, really hard to get to the place where that is such the powerhouse that it is now. But Izzy and I came from a place of respect for each other professionally, what we were both bringing to the table, and this shared passion of what we wanted to build. And through that, we were able to create a really incredible working relationship, and then a friendship that had this awesome foundation of trust under it.
I was just going to ask you, Sophie, what do you think is the, because first of all, I was laughing in the background. People can't hear me because it makes editing hard, but I was laughing about the meeting in the parking lot. But when you're talking about this, because I think you have the way you talk about how, okay, we're creating this partnership. And again, that's really kind of symbolic for you're empowering a community of women. So the fact that you're doing it together is very special. And I know at the same time that there's probably like you had to iron out some things. What do you think was the one or two practices or conversations that you had that really allowed you guys to work together seamlessly and start playing on both of your strengths instead of stepping over each other's toes or getting annoyed or triggered or anything like that that can happen in any relationship?
I would say the conversations were the hard ones, full stop. Possibly in both of our personalities, that we were not willing to walk away from the hard conversations. And so that could have looked like, because there was definitely some solid confrontation at the beginning as we were ironing that out, but we both showed up fully to the really challenging conversations. And they were about working style. Absolutely. They were also about decisions within the business. We also, at the beginning, through some advice from an advisor, we went and we did a little bit of work with a professional coach who had us lay out all of our goals and also our internal drivers. So on a personal level, really what drives us. And then we talked a lot about working styles. It was emotional work, but that has paid dividends as we've moved forward, because we both now understand what's driving the other person. Aligning to participate in that conversation at the very beginning before we really got started, and then showing up every single time to the hard conversations and making sure that we have resolution from them.
And I came from my last co-founder relationship that was bad. And it's the reason why the business dissolved. My co-founder and I were not on the same page We did not have mutual respect for each other. We were not dedicated to conflict resolution. We were completely different on a mission, vision standpoint. The co-founder relationship is the most important thing in a business. And so many business owners are not focused on it when it should be the main focus, because you're just not going to grow a business together if you are at odds with each other. It's like birthing a baby and raising a child. It's the same thing. It's so critical to success and happiness and mutual respect. I think that we learn from each other every single day.
I appreciate you talking about it. And the reason I wanted to ask so much about it is because I know a big block for a lot of women starting a business is doing it alone. But then there's also the fear of, if I join in with someone else, is it going to be more work? Is it not going to have as much impact? Is it going to be too much for me? I heard all these horror stories. So I think hearing about people who have found a way to work together and towards quite a big mission is huge. And also, I mean, this is kind of leads into the next question for you. I personally feel like, having failed at doing a product business, it is so much harder. It is so much harder than being on an online service business. People can disagree with me all they want, but I think it is so much harder. And so the fact that you're building that, I find fascinating. So I'm just curious, what led you to decide, okay, we're going to make it a product versus a service? And then also, how did you evolve it? Because you said originally it was more around nutrition, and now it's more on supplementation and nutrient needs.
So the reason why we were going to make it a product was we both have a background in CPG, consumer product. So we know so much about this industry. We both have lots and lots of real work experience bringing a product to life. That my last business was a food product for athletes, so I had done it before. I think that the other thing was that the product was needed. There are a lot of services out there that are supporting women, and it's great. They're popping up all over the place, and I think it's really powerful and something that we want to leverage in terms of collaborating with and making sure that we're lifting those businesses up. But the product was needed and it didn't exist. The fact that we saw white space, so drastic white space, was kind of incredible, especially how the market is right now with consumer products. There's so many for so many different things. And when I first kind of had the initial idea, I think it was smoothies. It was like frozen smoothie cubes for the different phases of the menstrual cycle, because I was learning all of this information about cycle syncing and how to eat for the different phases of the cycle. And I had a chart, and I had my grocery list, and I was like swapping it out, and it was super overwhelming and not sustainable, and I couldn't do it. And so I was like, I just wish there was just a thing I could put in a blender or something I could take that would help support my body without having to do calculus every day of what I should be eating at what time. And so initially that was the idea. And then as I worked with Sophie and we worked with our medical experts who helped actually create the formula from scientific research, we realized that the food piece was only a very small part of the equation. We actually need more than just food to fully support us, because we actually are not getting what we need from our food most of the time. That's in part because of the fact that the soil has degraded, and so the nutrients are less prevalent. Our supply chain is complicated. Food's coming from many miles away. It's degrading over time, and the absorption of nutrients are not actually appropriate for the combining and the bioavailability of what you're eating. For example, to absorb vitamin D, you need other vitamins and minerals to help that absorption. And so as we learned this through our medical experts, we realized that the most supportive thing that was missing for women was what DailyBasis is today, which is sort of a female multivitamin plus. It is everything that women need on a daily basis to support their daily health, and added minerals, nutrients, and herbs and botanicals to support the symptoms that are associated with the menstrual cycle.
This one is for Sophie. Have you been surprised at all with the evolution? Like, when you were coming at this together, did you see it similarly? Like, what was your experience with it?
Am I surprised by it? I don't think I'm surprised by it, because every step of the way, we've seen the reason for the evolution. Having had a background in food innovation and seeing projects from idea through commercialization, I would love to know a single person who raises their hand that says that that hasn't evolved throughout the course of a project. And it should. It should, because oftentimes it isn't until you're in the middle of it and you start to learn so much more that, you know, it's going to have evolutions. And I think that one of the things that I feel proud of and excited about is the number of conversations we've had with women throughout this process to really understand what do they know about their cycle, what are their actual pain points, because those are not always the assumptions we had at the beginning. So, for example, women are struggling with all different kinds of symptoms, as you know, symptoms based on whatever there is going on with their hormonal cycles. And so originally what we saw in the market was that there are a lot of businesses that tend to be, I don't want to be unkind, but they can be Band-Aid fixes for symptoms. And that's important because I do know what it's like to have very severe symptoms and say, I need something to make this go away so that I can function. The reality is that there isn't a product out there that is really getting to the root cause. Part of, just as an example, one of the learnings for Izzy and I that didn't necessarily impact the product itself, but impacts maybe the way we talk about it or the communication, was really around making sure that we met women where they are in their journey. And so if somebody is like, I have such debilitating gut issues, I cannot even think about my foundational health until I solve this problem. It's easier to say, hey, you know, different types of gut issues can be very related to hormonal health. So this can help that. We've evolved from a communication perspective, but I also think that the product evolution makes a lot of sense now too. It's clear. It comes in the 2 packages that you can see behind Izzy. So it supports the 2 primary phases of the menstrual cycle. It serves as not only different formulas to support the body during those different phases, it also serves somewhat as a marker to help women understand their cycle. So you take the first product as you're going through your follicular phase, the first half of your cycle, and then you kind of have this visual indication when you finish that package that you're moving into the second part of your cycle. So that was a awesome product evolution where we're like, oh, this can not only, you know, be a physical support, but also this pairs with the education part of the business as well.
That's such a paradigm shift. The idea that a health product would be cyclical. It's always been, this is your one solution for you to take. Either you take a pill and it solves all your symptoms, but not the root cause, or this is supposedly supposed to help you, but it's the one thing you take every day. And there's not really anything that thinks about it like that, where we have 2 stages based on where you're at in your cycle. And it allows each individual woman to time it for her own cycle, because we're not all on 28 days. So I think like that's also very revolutionary and something that a man wouldn't have thought about.
It's true. It's true. And I would also note that we don't feel like this is the end point. Like we feel like this product is great. We've had great response to it. We think the ingredients are solid, but we're also really committed to continuing to evolve it as science continues to improve and we study women more, and as we get more and more feedback on the product itself, continue those iterations and improvements.
We've gotten so deep into the concept of what you do and how you started. And again, it's such an interesting story. I'm going to recommend everyone go and find you afterwards. DailyBasis will ask where to connect to. But I want to first ask, these are kind of more getting to know you questions. So the first one is, what is a cringe moment for each of you in your business or with the product? Or not necessarily cringe, but awkward or something really failed. And then the follow-up question will be like, what's something you're really proud of having produced, created, or learned? So those 2 questions for each of you.
There's been so many cringe moments. I mean, I don't even know if cringe is the right word. I think, oh my gosh, what are we doing might be the right word. I mean, I could talk about the initial, when we were doing the ingredient sourcing, we have really specific ingredients in there, and the nutrient forms are very specific based on the bioavailability and absorption of each form. And so the sourcing took a really, really long time. And I won't name names, but we were on the phone with one of our suppliers, and they're not our suppliers now, but they were a potential supplier. And they recommended a vitamin that was a feed grade vitamin, meaning good enough for animals. They actually straight-faced recommended that that was the ingredient that we should put in our product made for women. I was just shocked. I'm so happy that this is also what I'm proud of. It's the Cringe and what I'm proud of. I mean, we were so specific on every single ingredient to make sure that it was from the right place. And the fact that we couldn't trust anybody to make those decisions for us because they were going to ultimately make the decisions that were the most cost effective for them. And they didn't really care about the final product. That was a pretty shocking reality, I think, early on, because we just realized that we were the only people that cared about this. And we had to make every decision knowing that to bring a product and brand to women that women can trust, they can rely on, they know it's safe. It's the reason why it took us such a long time to build this product.
I will say that the cringe moment for me, which was unavoidable and important to have, but it was important to us that the product was in a powder form for a number of reasons. There's also, you can get the quantity that's actually meaningful every single day. But developing a vitamin and mineral blend powder that people are actually going to taste instead of a pill is really challenging when you want to put everything in it that you think is important. And so we did multiple rounds of consumer taste tests. And the first ones, I don't know that I will be able to look at that group of taste testers the same as I did. There were some friends and family in there, but the taste of the first product that we had them try, I think, is unforgettable to anyone. It was quite a moment. I was like, we have asked our friends to ingest something that truly tastes like this, and they are doing their best to hold a straight face, love us through it. And we really have quite a support system that they keep showing up for this. So I will say that the fact that we are to where we are and the feedback we're getting on the product now is fantastic. People are taking it every day in water and, saying it tastes good. So that's amazing. And we didn't compromise on what we put in it. So it was a lot of work to get there.
The product I failed that I told you guys about, it was leggings. And I had family members try them on. And the cringe moment for me was when every single one of them of every size had a camel toe.
Yeah.
Bless our families. What would you say is the proud moment, or is it the same as with Izzy, that it's like what you guys have been able to create and staying really in tune with your community and refining with feedback?
Absolutely is that, and it absolutely is the product that we're putting out into the world. The other thing I've reflected on a lot is the growth that Izzy and I have gone through. And so I have historically been and still am a bit introverted, and I'm like a heads down, not super. I've not always naturally been really outgoing, and in a lot of ways you don't have to be, but when you're building a business, it really does require you to step out of your shell, and you have to talk about the business and really, meet a lot of people. And I don't know that it's self-promotional, but in some respects be comfortable, selling yourself and the brand and the product. Proud of that evolution. But I think so much of that is having an incredible partner who is also on a journey, and also Izzy has a natural way of supporting and helping through that, and it feels very positive and powerful.
The more you hear about a founder's story, especially what the two of you have done and the thought you've put into it and the ingredients, it does make people listening want to know more. We can only cover a little bit here, right? And you have so much more on your channels, on your website. So if you can share where people can find out more and ways that they can connect or interact, engage with you and the brand.
So our website is dailybasislife.com. You can check it out, and Instagram too. It's Daily Basis Life. Sophie and I are both on LinkedIn. We love to connect with other female founders. We love to chat about war stories and learn from other women in the space. So you can send me a note or Sophie a note on Instagram or LinkedIn, and we are super happy to connect with everyone.
Include in show notes all the places to reach you guys and to find out more. And thank you for sharing like all bits of the story, from the polish to the less flattering to the learning. Appreciate it both from both of you. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you connect to Daily Basis Life by Izzy and Sophie. You heard them here talk about their journey and how much thought they have put behind their product. And we all know in the wellness space, that's not always a given. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this story inspiring, please share it with someone else, whether they be another entrepreneur or even another woman in your life that you know would like to know more about their health, their hormones, and finding balance with all of it. I will see you in the next one.